My family thought they could hide everything. But what they didn't know was that every word, every action was being recorded, and I was ready for a retaliation no one saw coming. I'm Vanessa. I'm 31 years old. And I can still hear the sound of that slap, loud, sharp, and deliberate. But what I remember even more clearly is the sound that came after it. Laughter. My 6-year-old daughter, Mia, had just been hit across the face by my older brother, Lucas, in front of our entire extended family. And my parents. They laughed. My father let out this smug little chuckle and muttered, "She needed to learn some humility." My mother? She followed it with her signature airy laugh and a comment about how kids these days have no manners. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even move, not for a moment, because all I could think about was how familiar it felt. And then I remembered the microphone, the documentary microphone, set up by my cousin's husband to capture authentic family moments for a legacy video. They had no idea. That moment wasn't just going to live in my memory. It had been recorded, and that changed everything. You see, I didn't come from a place of peace. I grew up inside a house where favoritism wasn't just tolerated, it was policy. Lucas was the star, the prodigy, the golden boy who could do no wrong. And me, I was the lesson, the example, the one they used to remind him how much better he was. My father, Gerald, ran a successful law firm in Richmond. He built a reputation on control, precision, and fear. And Lucas, he absorbed all of it. He was everything Dad wanted, confident, sharp, and cruel when necessary. He knew how to climb a ladder, how to impress people, and how to win, even if it meant stepping on me every time. I was more like my mother in looks, hazel eyes, long brown hair, but in spirit I didn't fit. I questioned rules. I challenged things that didn't feel right. That made me, according to her, difficult. She never raised her voice, never scolded me outright. But she let my father do it. And when he did, she always found a way to make me feel like I deserved it. At family functions, she'd sigh when I spoke too loudly, shake her head when I laughed too freely. Vanessa's always been sensitive, she'd whisper to whoever was around as if I wasn't right there. Lucas never gave us any trouble. By the time I was 16, I learned how to be invisible. I stopped speaking up, stopped expecting fairness. I counted the months until I could leave for college. Freedom felt like my only chance at breathing. And for a while, it worked. I met Jared during orientation week at NC State. He was soft-spoken, kind, and unlike anyone in my family. We fell hard and fast. Married at 20. We barely had anything, but I finally felt seen. When Mia came along 4 years later, I felt like I'd rewritten history. I swore she'd never feel what I felt. I'd make sure of it. But of course nothing stays clean for long. Jared changed. The stress of parenting, long hours at work, and hidden messages on his phone with a woman named Alicia cracked our foundation. I found out about the affair 2 weeks before Mia's 4th birthday. He cried. I tried. We failed. I told my parents we just grew apart. I didn't want to hand them ammunition, but it didn't matter. My mom still said, "Well, men don't leave happy women." My dad simply sighed and said Lucas would never do that to his wife. Of course he wouldn't, because Lucas always knew how to play the part. Meanwhile, I was working 40 hours a week at a real estate office, barely covering rent and daycare. Every now and then, when the car broke down or Mia got sick, I had no choice but to call my parents. And they'd help, but always with a price. A lecture, a jab, a reminder of my failures. Maybe if you were more like Lucas. I heard it so often it became background noise. Lucas, meanwhile, was vice president of a booming financial firm. Married to Claire, a pediatric surgeon, no kids. Too busy being successful, he'd say with a smug grin. He lived in a gorgeous, modern home in the suburbs, threw lavish parties, and served as a mentor in some youth leadership program. My parents worshipped him. So when the family reunion at my parents' lakefront cabin rolled around this year, I said yes against every instinct in my body. Mia was excited. She wanted to swim in the lake, roast marshmallows, and meet the cousins. And me, I thought I could survive 2 days for her sake. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad. I was wrong. So very wrong. That weekend, I would relive my childhood trauma. I would watch history try to repeat itself, this time through my daughter. But I wouldn't let it. Not again. Because this time, I had proof. And I had nothing left to lose. I knew the reunion would bring discomfort, but I wasn't ready for the full emotional regression that hit the moment we pulled into that gravel driveway. It was like being 16 again, my stomach tight, my hands clammy, bracing myself for the inevitable passive-aggressive comments and subtle dismissals. My parents' lake house looked exactly the same as it had for years, massive, immaculately maintained with those floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Gaston. It had always been a status symbol, a shrine to my father's pride. And parked right in front, of course, was Lucas's shiny black Tesla. Behind it, my parents' BMW, freshly detailed. Meanwhile, Mia and I stepped out of my 10-year-old Honda Civic, its AC barely functioning, its paint fading. She looked up at the house with wide eyes beaming with excitement. "We're here!" she squealed, bouncing in her glittery sneakers. "Can I go find the lake?" "Let's unpack first, baby," I said, faking a smile as I helped her out of the car. "Then we'll say hello to everyone." The front door opened before we even reached it. My mother stood there in white capris and a pastel blouse, hair perfectly curled, not a strand out of place. She gave me a quick once-over, her smile thin and rehearsed. "Well, Vanessa," she said, "we were beginning to think you'd changed your mind." "Traffic was heavy," I replied, returning her stiff hug. She knelt slightly to greet Mia. "And look at you," she cooed. "Getting so big." "What grade are you in now?" "First," Mia said proudly. "And I learned a whole new song for the reunion." My mother's smile twitched. How lovely. Inside, the great room buzzed with relatives. Cousins I hadn't seen in years. My aunt and uncle from Raleigh. Lucas stood near the fireplace, drink in hand, wearing designer loafers and a smug expression. His wife Claire hovered nearby, as poised and perfect as ever. She offered me a polite hug, her kindness always just slightly distanced. "Well, well," Lucas said loud enough to draw attention. "The prodigal sister returns. And with little Mia." "You've grown, kiddo." Mia offered a shy wave. I felt her press into my side, just like I used to do around him. Lucas turned to me. "Still working at that little real estate office?" "Still there," I replied evenly. "Got promoted to team lead this quarter." "How nice," he said, dragging out the words. "I just wrapped up negotiations on a multi-million-dollar acquisition. You know, different worlds." Dad clapped him on the back. "That's my boy," he said proudly, not even glancing my way. I felt the air tighten around me. Same house, same hierarchy. My cousin Ben's husband Mark was setting up his camera equipment by the windows. He gave me a quick nod. "Your dad wants plenty of footage for the legacy documentary," he murmured as I passed. "We've got audio feeds around the common rooms." "Guess he wants to immortalize the dynasty," I replied dryly. Mark's eyes flicked to Mia. "Might be useful someday," he said cryptically. Our assigned room was predictably the smallest. No lake view. A twin bed. Mia didn't care. She unpacked her swimsuit with glee, asking when she could sing her new song for everyone. After dinner, I told her. "Maybe outside on the porch?" She nodded, eyes gleaming. Dinner that night was exactly what I expected. Lucas dominated the conversation, bragging about a new investment strategy he pioneered. My mother commented on my haircut. "It's casual. And my parenting, Mia has so much energy. Maybe more structure would help." Mia's cousins, all older, barely acknowledged her, correcting her grammar, sighing when she tried to join their conversation. And still she kept smiling. After dinner, while we did dishes, my aunt leaned in. "Vanessa, Lucas mentioned you've been struggling financially. If you ever want to earn a bit extra, we've got an opening in our office mailroom." "I actually lead a team now," I said. "Oh," she blinked. "Well, the offer stands. Sometimes we have to be realistic." Later in bed, I found Mia quiet, unusual for her. "Sweetheart," I asked. "Everything okay?" She hesitated. Uncle Lucas said I shouldn't be so loud if I want people to like me, and Emma said my song was annoying. I swallowed hard. Your voice is beautiful, I said firmly, and you have every right to use it. Some people just don't understand joy. She nodded slowly, then whispered, Grandma said you used to be too loud too. Is that why you got in trouble? I blinked back tears. They were wrong then, and they're wrong now. I kissed her forehead, held her close, and whispered, Tomorrow will be better. But deep down, I didn't believe it. Morning came with the scent of fresh waffles and the faint sound of lake water lapping the shore beyond the windows. Mia was up before me, dressed in her favorite sundress with little blue butterflies practically vibrating with excitement. Mom, wake up, she whispered loudly, bouncing beside me. Uncle Mark said there's a big breakfast downstairs. I rubbed my eyes and glanced at the time, just after 8 a.m. My body begged for another hour of sleep, but Mia's joy was contagious. I sat up, pulled my hair into a bun, and followed her to what my parents dramatically referred to as the grand room. It was already packed. The ceiling stretched 2 stories high with exposed wooden beams, and a wall of glass gave a perfect view of the lake sunlight glimmering across the surface. My father, ever the self-appointed patriarch, sat at the head of the massive oak table skimming the newspaper while sipping his black coffee. My mother was barking quiet instructions to the catering staff they had hired, because naturally she wouldn't dare cook for her family. Lucas was at the center of the room, dressed like a man casually attending a board meeting, pressed slacks, collared shirt, and confidence oozing from every movement. He was chatting with my dad and Claire about something involving property portfolios and tax shields. Good morning, I said politely, guiding Mia in. My mother barely looked up. Vanessa, coffee is on the sideboard. Mia, the children are eating at the small table near the window. Mia nodded eagerly and skipped over to the other kids, all seated with perfect posture and subdued expressions. I poured myself coffee and noticed Mark adjusting the microphones discreetly around the room. Capturing all the family magic, I asked under my breath as I passed him. Your dad wants natural family dynamics. He replied, tone dry. So that's what I'm recording. Breakfast passed in a haze of passive conversation. Mia, ever the social butterfly, tried inserting herself into her cousin's chat about summer camps and science fairs. But every attempt was met with dismissive smiles or silence. Still, she smiled and hummed quietly as she colored in her book. That humming slowly grew into singing. Soft at first, then louder, more confident. She sang the chorus of her favorite cartoon theme, something cheerful about adventures and friendship. Her sweet, high-pitched voice bounced around the acoustically tuned room. And I watched it happen in real time, Lucas's jaw tightening, my mother shooting me disapproving glances, Claire shifting uncomfortably, my father raising one brow and sighing. Audrey, my mother said sharply across the table, don't you think Mia's being a bit disruptive? I started to respond, but Mia had just reached the chorus and her voice soared with unrestrained joy. For God's sake, Lucas muttered, slamming his napkin onto the table. Can't you control your child for 5 minutes? I pushed my chair back, intending to walk over and gently quiet Mia. But before I could move, Lucas stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood glass of juice tipping slightly from the motion. He stormed toward the kids' table. I moved, but my Aunt Rose stepped in to ask me something mundane about property taxes, and I hesitated just for a second. That second changed everything. Lucas reached Mia just as she looked up, smiling brightly, oblivious to the storm heading her way. His hand came down with a shocking slap across her cheek. It echoed through the hall, freezing every conversation. Time stopped. Mia's tiny body rocked back, her song cut short mid-note. Her crayon dropped to the floor. Her lip trembled. And then came the words, cold, rehearsed, cruel. Like mother, like daughter. Both of you are useless. I gasped, pushing past my aunt and running to Mia, whose cheek now bore the bright red shape of Lucas's hand. My father didn't miss a beat. She needed to learn some shame, he said matter-of-factly, flipping his newspaper. Girls these days don't understand discipline. And my mother? She laughed. Not nervously, not out of shock, but a soft approving chuckle. I knelt, scooping Mia into my arms as she began to cry, her small body shaking with pain and humiliation. "What is wrong with you?" I hissed at Lucas, who stood above us with his arms crossed. "She needs to learn the world doesn't revolve around her noise," he snapped. My voice shook. "She's a child." She was singing. Lucas sneered. "Maybe if someone had disciplined you better, you wouldn't be a divorced receptionist raising a brat alone." "Administrative lead," I corrected quietly, still cradling Mia. My father folded his paper precisely. "You're overreacting as usual, Vanessa. Look at how well Lucas turned out. Maybe if you weren't so soft, your daughter wouldn't be so disruptive." And in that moment I saw it. The cycle. Repeating. They had done this to me, and now they were doing it to her. But this time I wouldn't stay silent. Not again. I stood in that vaulted room holding my sobbing daughter, heart-pounding hands, trembling, but not with fear, with clarity. Everything around me, my brother's smug expression, my father's dismissive snort, my mother's deflecting laugh, suddenly fell into sharp focus. They didn't just allow this kind of cruelty. They endorsed it, just like they always had. And I had brought Mia right into the lion's den. But this time I had something I never did before. Proof. I scanned the room and found Mark by his camera equipment, standing stiff as a board, his face pale. Our eyes locked. He nodded just barely. The microphones were still on. I looked back at Lucas, who was now sipping orange juice like nothing had happened. "You're disgusting," I said through clenched teeth. "Watch your mouth, Vanessa," he replied. "That was discipline. Something you clearly know nothing about." I turned away from him, adjusting Mia in my arms. Her face was pressed into my shoulder, her cries muffled but constant. "We're leaving," I said. "Oh, come on," my mother sighed, pushing her chair back. It was hardly more than a tap. "You're embarrassing yourself." "I'm embarrassing myself," I repeated, incredulous. "My brother just slapped a 6-year-old and I'm the embarrassment." Lucas stepped forward. "You always were dramatic. Maybe you need someone to teach you the difference between discipline and abuse." I backed away, shielding Mia with my body. "Stay away from us." "You're running away again, little sis," he taunted, his voice laced with derision. "That's all you've ever been good at." I didn't answer. I turned, walked upstairs with Mia still crying in my arms, and closed the door behind us. My daughter's cheek was bright red, her sobs softening into hiccups as I dabbed it gently with a cold washcloth. "It hurts, Mommy," she whimpered. Was I bad? I knelt in front of her, my hands cupping her face. "No, baby, you were not bad. Uncle Lucas was wrong. He should never have touched you. Ever." But Grandpa said I was too loud, and Grandma laughed. I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from screaming. They were wrong too. None of them should have said any of that. You were just singing, baby, and your voice is beautiful. Don't let anyone take that from you." Mia sniffled and hugged me tightly, and I held her, whispering soft reassurances while I tried to steady my racing thoughts. We needed to leave, not just emotionally, physically. I grabbed our suitcase and began packing quickly, stuffing pajamas, swimsuits, coloring books into our duffel. I wasn't even thinking clearly, just moving on instinct. I couldn't let this place rewire my daughter's spirit the way it had rewired mine. Then came the knock. "Who is it?" I called, already bracing for my mother's condescension. "It's Mark," came a hushed reply. "Can I speak with you alone?" I opened the door cautiously. He looked rattled. "I got it all on tape," he whispered. "The slap, what Lucas said. Your dad's comment, your mom's laugh, everything." My breath caught. "You're sure?" He nodded. "I can get you a copy, but they'll want me to delete it once they realize. We don't have long." I stared at him, blinking back tears of relief. "Can you have it ready in 20 minutes? I'll meet you by your car." He turned and left quietly. I closed the door and grabbed my phone, dialing the one person who had always shown up when my family didn't. "Tara," she answered on the second ring. "Hey, how's the reunion from hell?" "Lucas hit Mia," I said, my voice breaking. "He slapped her across the face for singing. And my parents, they laughed." Silence. Then her voice turned steely. "You're getting out of there, Right now. I'm packing. Don't go home, she said quickly. Come here, in case they try to follow or manipulate you. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. Okay. Mia had fallen asleep by the time I finished packing. I woke her gently whispering that we were going to visit Aunt Tara. She blinked up at me still subdued, but nodded. I crept downstairs, bag over my shoulder, daughter on my hip. My mother appeared in the foyer, arms crossed. Where do you think you're going? Home, I said. Unless you thought we'd stay after your son assaulted my child. Don't be ridiculous, she snapped. It was a tap. Kids bruise easily. You're making a scene over nothing. I turned slightly so she could see Mia's face. The red mark was still visible. For a flicker of a second, doubt flashed across her expression, but just as quickly, it vanished. You're being hysterical, she said flatly. Come sit down. We'll talk rationally. There's nothing left to talk about, I said, stepping toward the door. My father's voice echoed behind her. If you walk out that door, Vanessa, don't expect any more help. No more bailouts when you can't make rent. I stopped. The old me, the one they trained, would have hesitated. Would have weighed fear and shame. But I didn't blink. Keep your money, I said. It's not worth this. And with that, I walked out into the morning light. Mark was waiting by his car, mostly hidden by a stand of pines. He handed me a small USB drive. The audio is crystal clear, he said softly. Use it how you need to. But be careful, they'll come after you for this. I know, I replied. But this time, I'm ready. The drive to Tara's place felt surreal, like I was watching my life unfold from outside my own body. Mia slept in the back seat, her face still bearing the faint pink imprint of Lucas's hand. Every few miles I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting my parents' Mercedes to appear behind us. But the road remained empty. Tara lived in a cozy third-floor walk-up about 20 minutes from the lake house. When we arrived, she was waiting by the door in leggings and a hoodie, arms already open. She pulled me into a hug, then dropped to her knees to wrap Mia in one too. I set up the guest room, she whispered. You're staying as long as you need. That night, after Mia was tucked into bed, finally asleep after hours of fitful tossing, I joined Tara at her kitchen table. Between us sat her laptop and the small USB drive Mark had given me. Are you sure you want to listen to it again? She asked. I need to know exactly what was said, I replied. And I need someone outside the family to hear it. She nodded solemnly, then inserted the drive. What played out was worse than I remembered. Lucas's voice was cold, precise. His slap caught clearly by the microphone echoed through the speakers. My father's smug justification. My mother's laugh. All of it laid bare, no excuses, no filters. It was the kind of evidence no one could twist. Tara's eyes welled up. Jesus, she whispered. This isn't just toxic. This is generational abuse on tape. I nodded. So what do I do? You could press charges, she said. That's assault on a child. I thought about it. But I know how my family works. They'll gaslight the hell out of it. Say I'm unstable, say I'm exaggerating. I'm a single mom working a modest job. They'll paint me as bitter and broke. Even with that recording, she asked. I hesitated. It might not be admissible. It was recorded without consent. I want something more certain. Something that can't be buried in court documents or twisted by high-priced lawyers. Then what, she asked. Just let them get away with it. No, I said slowly. I don't want revenge. But there has to be accountability. Over the next few days, while Mia adjusted to our temporary life at Tara's, I began building something I never thought I'd have the nerve to create a case. Not a legal one, at least, not in court, but a moral one. First, I took Mia to see Dr. Winters, her pediatrician, who documented the fading bruise and noted her change in behavior, clinginess, nightmares, fear of loud male voices. Then came a referral to Dr. Garner, a child psychologist. After just one session, Dr. Garner sat me down. She's experiencing a trauma response, she explained. Sleep disturbances, hypervigilance, emotional withdrawal, all classic signs. This wasn't a harmless incident. Will she be okay? I asked, the guilt rising in my chest. With time, therapy, and a stable environment, yes, Dr. Garner said. But I need to be clear, this was not minor, and the adults who minimized it are actively making her recovery harder. Her written evaluation became the first official piece of my growing documentation file. Meanwhile, the messages from my family began piling up. My mother's texts veered from guilt-tripping. "You're breaking your father's heart with all this drama," to denial. It was just a light slap. "For heaven's sake, my fathers were more transactional." "Let's be adults. You'll ruin your daughter's future if you go public." Lucas unsurprisingly went straight to threats. "You'll regret making this a thing. Careful who you try to ruin your life isn't exactly scandal-proof." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I began editing the audio clip. I didn't alter anything, just trimmed the excess. What remained was devastatingly clear. The slap, the comment about us being useless, the line about learning shame, and my mother's cold laughter. I attached the clip to a brief professional email and sent it to 3 carefully chosen recipients. The board of directors at Meridian Financial, where Lucas served as vice president. The leadership of a children's mentorship foundation he worked with. The administrators of the local business leadership program where he volunteered with teens. Each message was calm, factual, and devoid of emotion. I requested confidentiality and explained that I felt a moral obligation to report what had occurred, given Lucas's work with minors. Tara stood behind me as I hovered over the send button. "There's no going back after this," she whispered. "I know," I replied. But he made his choice the moment he raised his hand to my daughter. I clicked send. And I waited. It didn't take long. It started with a flurry of unread notifications. By mid-afternoon, my inbox was filling up LinkedIn messages, voicemails, emails from addresses I didn't recognize. One stood out right away, an internal HR contact from Meridian Financial. "We are conducting an internal review regarding a matter involving Mr. Lucas Carter. Thank you for your submission. We may reach out for further details." That was the moment I knew the ripple had started. Then came the panic. Lucas must have found out fast. Maybe someone on the board tipped him off? Maybe he recognized the phrasing in the email. Regardless, his texts exploded across my phone like firecrackers. "What the hell did you do? The board called an emergency meeting. You need to retract that statement now. This is a family matter, Vanessa. You just ended my career over a misunderstanding." But I didn't answer. My parents weren't far behind. My dad's messages were curt and cold. "You've betrayed this family for attention." My mom's were more erratic, first defensive, then pleading. "Please, we can fix this. Let's talk. We'll handle it like adults." I didn't respond to them either. Later that night, my phone rang. It was Mark. "They're flipping out," he said, voice low. "Lucas is threatening to sue everyone. Your parents are blaming me, but they don't know I gave you the file. Just that I recorded it." "Let them try," I said calmly. "Truth isn't defamation." "That's what I told them," he replied. "But be careful. They're saying you're unstable, that this is about money or jealousy. Your dad even said you've always had issues with men." I let out a dry laugh. Of course, classic scapegoat move. But what I didn't expect came the next morning. A call from an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail until I saw the name. "Claire Carter, Lucas's wife," I answered cautiously. "Hello." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Can we meet somewhere private?" We arranged to meet at a cafe halfway between her suburb and Tara's place. I arrived early, nerves fluttering, unsure of what I'd face. When Claire walked in, I barely recognized her. The always poised, perfectly polished woman now looked like she hadn't slept in days. No makeup, dark circles under her eyes, hands trembling slightly as she wrapped them around a coffee cup. "I heard the recording," she said without preamble, sliding into the booth across from me. "Mark's wife played it for me." I waited. "Was that the first time Lucas hit Mia?" she asked, her voice catching. "Yes," I said. "But his temper's always been there. He just never acted like that with her before." Claire exhaled long and shaky. "He's never hit me either. But he's scared me. The way he talks when he's angry, the way he throws things." She looked down. "He threw a glass at the wall last night. Said this was all my fault for not defending him to my dad, who happens to be on Meridian's board. I reached across the table and gently squeezed her hand. I never wanted to drag you into this. You didn't, she said firmly. Lucas did, and I needed to see who he really is. I told him I'm staying with my sister for now. He needs help, and I'm done enabling him. Her words hit like a balm and a blade, validation and sadness all at once. By the time we said goodbye, I felt something shift, maybe not in my family, but in me. This wasn't just about holding someone accountable. It was about protecting others who had quietly endured the same storms. As I drove back to Tara's, another message popped up. Grace, my supervisor at Madison Marketing. Hey, Vanessa, just got a strange call from someone named Lucas Carter. Said he might use you as a reference and asked some odd questions. I didn't share anything but wanted to check in everything okay. I replied immediately, briefly explaining the situation and attaching the audio clip. Her response came within minutes. That's horrifying. Don't worry, he won't get anything from us. Take all the time you need for Mia. You're safe here. That moment, so simple, so human, meant the world. For the first time, my job wasn't a liability. It was an anchor. Meanwhile, the fallout for Lucas escalated rapidly. By the end of the week, Meridian Financial placed him on administrative leave pending internal investigation. The children's charity removed him from their board with immediate effect. And the mentorship program postponed his involvement until further notice. The public image of Lucas Carter, community leader, family man, youth mentor, was crumbling, and no one could stop it. People began to reach out. Neighbors, parents from Mia's school, distant acquaintances. Many shared similar stories of discipline that crossed the line of family abuse disguised as tradition. It was like a curtain had been pulled back, and suddenly I wasn't just a mother trying to protect her daughter. I was part of something bigger, a reckoning. The messages kept coming, some supportive, some cautious, and a few infuriatingly neutral. But the one that caught me completely off guard came from Paul. He called late one evening while Mia was asleep, and I was curled up on Tara's couch, sifting through emails from other parents and acquaintances who had experienced similar patterns of abuse in their own families. I just thought you should know, Paul said quietly. A few other relatives have reached out to me privately. They said they've seen Lucas be aggressive with other kids before, mostly his nieces and nephews, grabbing arms too hard, yelling, making them cry. I closed my eyes and let the words settle over me like cold rain. Why didn't anyone say anything? They were afraid, Paul said. Afraid of your parents, of causing a rift, of being labeled dramatic. You know how your family operates. But now that everything's out in the open, they're supporting you. That hit me harder than I expected. Because it meant this wasn't just about my daughter anymore. Lucas had been doing this unchecked for years, and no one stopped him. Because the entire family had been trained to protect the image, not the people. The next few days felt like living inside a slow, unstoppable avalanche. Word spread quickly, and, though no media outlets picked up the story, it wasn't public enough for that. The professional and social damage was undeniable. According to Paul, Lucas was being quietly pushed out of client-facing roles at work. And in their exclusive social circle, dinner invitations started vanishing. There were whispers, awkward silences, sideways glances. My parents, meanwhile, doubled down. They tried to control the narrative, telling family members that I was mentally unstable, that I'd always been jealous of Lucas, that I was using my daughter as a pawn. My father even sent an email blast to several relatives accusing me of sabotaging the family's legacy. I didn't respond, but others did. My Aunt Catherine, my mother's older sister, called me directly. Her voice, usually soft and reserved, cracked with emotion. I saw it happen, she confessed. I saw him hit Mia. I was standing across the room and I didn't do anything. I froze. Why are you telling me now? I asked gently. Because your parents are asking the family to present a united front, to say it was exaggerated. And I can't lie about this. Not anymore. Her words lit a small spark in me, faint but real. One by one, more relatives reached out. Some to say they believed me. Some to admit they had seen Derek's temper before. A few just said, I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner. It didn't heal the wound, but it dulled the edge. Meanwhile, Mia was beginning to heal. Slowly. Dr. Garner said she was still experiencing anxiety around men, especially loud male voices, but her progress was encouraging. And the most beautiful sign, she started singing again. It began in little bursts, humming to herself while coloring quietly, mouthing lyrics in the bathtub. Then one evening, she sang out loud while brushing her stuffed bunny's fur. I stood in the hallway and cried quietly, heartful and breaking at the same time. But just as we were settling into this fragile new normal, another wave hit. My grandmother called. Now you have to understand, Grandma Edith is the matriarch of our family. 87 years old, sharp as a tack, and the one person my father still defers to. She's never meddled publicly in family disputes. Until now. This has gone far enough, she declared over the phone. I want both sides of the story. Sunday. At my house. 2 o'clock. I was stunned. Grandma, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm not asking, she said firmly. If you care about this family, you'll be there. I hung up and stared at the phone for a long time. Part of me wanted to say no, to protect my peace, to walk away completely. But another part, fierce burning with something I couldn't name, said, let them all hear it. Together. For once. I consulted Dr. Garner before making a decision. Should I bring Mia? I asked. Her response was immediate. Absolutely not. This is adult business. She shouldn't be anywhere near it. And if they try to draw her into the conflict again, you walk out. Tara agreed to watch Mia that day. You sure you're ready for this? She asked. I don't know, I admitted. But maybe it's time they finally heard my voice too. So I pulled on the same navy blazer I wore to every job interview that ever mattered. I tied my hair back. I packed a copy of the psychologist's report, a transcript of the audio, and a flash drive just in case. And I drove to my grandmother's Victorian house not as the scapegoat they raised, but as a mother they underestimated. Grandma Edith's house was just as I remembered it, grand, regal, and somehow frozen in time. The wraparound porch still creaked underfoot, and the scent of lavender sachets hit me the second I stepped inside. But unlike childhood visits filled with piano recitals and formal dinners, this one pulsed with tension. Everyone was already there when I arrived. My parents sat stiffly on the floral-patterned sofa, my mother's posture immaculate, her lips pressed into a tight line. My father, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. Lucas stood near the fireplace, shoulders hunched, hands in his pockets, eyes bloodshot. Claire sat away from him near the bay window with her arms folded, her silence louder than any words. Scattered across the room were other family members, Aunt Catherine, Uncle Rob, cousins I hadn't seen in years. The usual pleasantries were noticeably absent. No one dared speak above a murmur, and then she entered. Grandma Edith leaning on her cane but radiating the same commanding presence she had carried her whole life. Her silver hair was pinned perfectly, her brooch glinting in the chandelier light. I've lived long enough to see 5 generations of this family, she said, without so much as a hello. And I've never been more disappointed than I am today. My father straightened. Mother, if you would just let us explain. Gerald. I may be old, she snapped, but I am not senile. Paul gave me the recording. The room went silent. Not a pin drop, not a breath. She turned to Lucas. You struck a child, a 6-year-old, for singing. Lucas opened his mouth, then closed it. His face flushed crimson. And then she continued, her voice unwavering. You insulted both her and her mother. Your behavior was inexcusable. It wasn't that hard of a slap, Lucas mumbled. Everyone's overreacting. Be quiet, she said firmly. When a grown man hits a child, it's not about force. It's about power. And you abused it. Then she turned her steely gaze toward my parents, and the two of you laughed, encouraged it, dismissed it. My mother flinched. Mom, you don't understand. Vanessa has always been difficult. She exaggerates. I raised your husband, Grandma Edith interrupted sharply. I know exactly where Lucas learned this behavior. She looked at my father now, whose hands were clenched tightly. Your father hit you. Harshly. I saw it. and I regret every day that I didn't stop him. But I will not make the same mistake again. The air in the room shifted. My mother's eyes darted nervously. Lucas looked stunned. Then my grandmother turned to me. "Vanessa, you did what I should have done decades ago. You protected your child even at great personal cost. For that, you have my respect." I blinked, momentarily speechless. "I didn't expect you to take sides," I finally said. She gave a half smile. "I'm not taking sides. I'm taking the child's side, which is what everyone else here should have done." My father stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. Vanessa destroyed her brother's reputation out of spite. He made one mistake." "No," I cut in. "He didn't just make a mistake. He made a choice. And now he has to live with the consequences." My voice trembled, but I held it steady. "Mia has nightmares," I continued. She stopped singing. She asked me if she was bad because Lucas hit her. "Do you understand what that does to a 6-year-old? Lucas's lips parted, but no words came out. "That's the thing," I said. "You didn't mean to traumatize her. You just wanted her quiet. You wanted control. The same way this family has always tried to silence me." Silence fell again. Then Claire stood. "I'm filing for separation," she said quietly. Everyone turned to her. What Lucas looked genuinely shocked. "I've heard that tone from you before. I've felt that fear. And I'm done pretending it's normal." This incident made me realize just how far we've let things go. I won't stay and wait for it to escalate. My mother stood as if to protest, but Grandma raised her hand. "There's more," she said sharply. "Aunt Catherine, would you speak?" My aunt stood slowly, wringing her hands. "I watched it happen," she said. "I didn't intervene, and I'm ashamed of that. But I won't lie to protect a man who hit a child." Other relatives began murmuring their support. Uncle Rob added, "I saw Lucas shove a colleague at the golf club last year. He lost his temper and grabbed the guy. I didn't say anything at the time, but I should have." Then Jennifer, one of the younger cousins, said quietly, "He twisted my son's arm at a barbecue 2 summers ago. Said it was just a warning. I let it slide. Not anymore." Each testimony chipped away at the facade my parents had so carefully built around Lucas. And still they tried to salvage it. "Every family has conflicts," my mother offered weakly. "This has just been blown out of proportion." "No," I said, standing fully. "This has been allowed for too long. We are done pretending this is normal." And for once, no one rushed to defend them. The tension in the room reached its peak. You could almost feel the walls lean in, like even the house itself wanted to see how this would end. Lucas looked around, searching for a lifeline. "So that's it," he scoffed. "One mistake and suddenly I'm a monster. You're all acting like I'm some kind of abuser." "You are," Claire said simply. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a blade. "I've spent years excusing your temper," she continued. "Telling myself you were just under pressure. That throwing things, shouting, slamming doors, it wasn't that bad. But hearing what you said to Mia, what you said to Vanessa, it made me realize that's who you are when no one's watching. And I refuse to let that man become a father someday." Lucas opened his mouth, then shut it again. He didn't deny it. Couldn't. My mother tried one last tactic. "Claire, sweetheart, every marriage has rough patches. You can't throw away everything over one incident." Claire didn't flinch. "It's not just one. It's a pattern. And I won't wait around until he does to someone else what he did to Mia." My father tried to steer the conversation. "This is turning into a witch hunt. Vanessa, you had no right to share that recording. You ambushed your own family." "No," I replied calmly. "I held them accountable. There's a difference." I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder, Dr. Garner's evaluation of Mia, a printed transcript of the audio, and a list of the organizations I had contacted. "I'm not here to get anyone's approval," I said, placing it on the coffee table. "I'm here to make sure no one else gets hurt." And then Grandma Edith stood again. "This family is at a crossroads," she said. "Healing is possible, but only if we stop protecting bad behavior in the name of blood." Her words landed heavy. Lucas let out a humorless laugh. "So that's it. Everyone here thinks I'm a villain now." "No," I said, locking eyes with him. "We think you chose to be one. And now, for the first time in your life, you're facing the fallout." He turned to my father. "You're going to let her talk to me like that?" My father didn't answer. My mother looked down. Claire picked up her purse. "I'm staying with my sister," she said to the room. "And when the divorce papers arrive, I won't be fighting quietly." Lucas didn't stop her. He just stood there motionless as she walked out. The family meeting continued another hour, mostly filled with long overdue conversations, admissions, and more than a few tears. Cousins spoke up. Old wounds surfaced. Truths were aired that had been festering in silence for decades. But one thing was certain: the family would never be the same. And that wasn't a tragedy. It was a beginning. When the meeting finally ended, people slowly filtered out. Some approached me quietly to say thank you. Others didn't say anything at all, but their silence was no longer the dismissive kind. It was reflection. As I reached the front door, Grandma caught my arm. "It will take time," she said softly, "but change always does." I nodded, throat tight. "Thank you for believing me." "I should have believed you years ago," she replied. "But I believe you now, and I believe in that little girl of yours. She's going to be just fine." For the first time in what felt like forever, I believed it too. When I returned to Tara's, Mia ran to the door and jumped into my arms. "Did you tell them what Uncle Lucas did?" she asked. "I did," I said, kissing her forehead. "And they finally listened." Her eyes lit up in a way I hadn't seen in days. "Can I sing now?" she asked shyly. I blinked, caught off guard. "Right now?" She nodded. "The song I've been practicing." I turned to Tara, who smiled and gave a gentle nod. "Of course, baby," I said. "Sing your heart out." And she did. She stood right there in Tara's living room, barefoot and fearless, and sang the softest, most beautiful melody about sunlight and bravery and finding your voice. She didn't even flinch when her voice hit the high notes. She sang like she had never been silenced. And that was the sound of healing. After the family meeting, everything changed, and not in the explosive, dramatic way you might expect. No screaming confrontations or public meltdowns, just a quiet, steady unraveling of old structures that had held for too long. Lucas's reputation never recovered. Within 2 weeks, Meridian Financial issued a carefully worded public statement reaffirming their commitment to ethical conduct and family values. And though his name wasn't mentioned, insiders knew exactly who it was about. He was demoted to a non-client-facing role. No bonuses, no speaking events, no more press. His once polished LinkedIn page went silent. The children's charity released him from their board. The mentorship program put out a statement about reviewing leadership involvement and ensuring safe spaces for youth. Behind the scenes, Lucas tried to spin a new story that I had doctored the audio, that this was a vindictive smear campaign. But the people who heard that clip, who listened to the slap, the insults, the laughter, knew better. You can't fake that kind of truth. Claire officially filed for divorce. During one of our lunch meetups, something we'd started doing weekly, she told me she'd been carrying secrets of her own. "I had 2 miscarriages," she said quietly over coffee. "And I used to blame myself. Stress. Bad luck. But now I wonder, maybe it was the environment. The stress of living with someone like him. I was constantly walking on eggshells." She reached for her cup, her fingers steady for the first time, but not anymore. It wasn't just Lucas's life that shifted. My parents found themselves isolated too. They tried calling. My mom sent a dinner invitation with no mention of what had happened. My dad emailed me insisting the whole thing had been blown out of proportion and that I was holding a grudge too long. But I didn't respond, not until I was ready. With Dr. Garner's guidance, I drafted a message outlining clear boundaries. If they wanted to see Mia again, they would need to acknowledge what happened, apologize specifically and sincerely, attend family therapy with me to begin repairing what was broken. Their reaction was predictable: radio silence. Then grudging acceptance. We began family therapy. The sessions were tense, often painful. My father tried to dominate the narrative. My mother cried frequently, claiming she just wanted peace. But our therapist was firm. Reconciliation requires accountability, she said, and accountability begins with acknowledging harm. It wasn't until the third session that my father finally admitted through gritted teeth, I should have stopped Lucas. What he did to Mia was wrong. It was a start. My mother took longer. She clung tightly to her identity as the family glue, the one who kept things smooth and quiet. I just wanted everyone to get along, she sobbed. That's what mothers do. No, I said gently. Mothers protect their children even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it means calling out their own husbands or sons. By the fifth session, something shifted. She began listening more, apologizing without adding a but. She even caught herself before criticizing Mia's clothes once. Progress wasn't a straight line, but it was movement. Meanwhile, Mia flourished. Dr. Garner reduced her sessions to monthly check-ins. Her nightmares lessened. Her confidence returned. And her voice, it soared. She joined a local children's choir. The first time I heard her singing in front of a group again, with no hesitation, no flinch. When people clapped, I cried in the back row. I wasn't the same either. The storm that shattered our family also revealed something I hadn't expected: my own strength. I applied for a project manager position at Madison Marketing. It felt like a stretch. I didn't have the perfect credentials, the fanciest resume. But during the interview, Grace looked me dead in the eye and said, "You've already proven you can lead. The way you handled what happened with Mia, that took courage, strategy, and compassion, that's what we need in this role." I got the job. The raise meant we could finally move out of our tiny apartment. We didn't need help from my parents anymore. No more bargaining with guilt money. No more lectures in exchange for rent checks. For the first time in my adult life, I felt free. More than that, I felt worthy. And as for my relationship with family, it's complicated. Some ties faded quietly. Others reformed on stronger, more honest ground. Aunt Catherine became a constant in our lives. Even Paul, who had risked so much by giving me that recording, became a trusted friend, someone who understood the cost of doing the right thing. But what mattered most was this. Mia no longer flinched when she heard a man raise his voice. She no longer asked if she was bad for being loud. She sang without shame, and I stood beside her, not as the woman who once whispered to herself to stay invisible, but as her mother, her protector, her mirror. Because in saving her voice, I found my own. 7 months after that slap at the lake house, our lives looked nothing like they did before. And thank God for that. Our new apartment wasn't big, but it felt like home in a way no place ever had. Not because of the furniture or the location, but because of the peace inside it. There was no fear hanging in the corners, no tension hiding in the walls. It was filled with soft music, spontaneous dance parties, and the kind of laughter that comes from knowing you're safe. Mia's room was covered in posters of her favorite cartoon characters, drawings she taped up herself, and a bulletin board where she proudly pinned every sticker and ribbon from choir practice. Yes, choir. Not only had she found the courage to sing again, but she had joined the community center's children's choir. The same voice that once got her slapped was now being celebrated. I still remember the first time she performed with the group. She spotted me in the front row, waved shyly, then looked at the choir director for her cue. As the music started, she sang eyes open, voice steady, chin lifted like she had something to say and knew the world wanted to hear it. I cried the entire time. Afterward, her choir teacher, Ms. Joanna, came up to me and said, "Your daughter has something special. She sings with purpose." She has no idea, I thought. In therapy, Dr. Garner continued to monitor Mia's progress. During our last session, she told me she no longer associates her voice with punishment or shame. That's a major milestone. She's healing. And I was too. I'd started speaking at local parenting groups and trauma recovery workshops. Tara was the first to suggest it. "You have a story people need to hear," she said. "Especially other parents who've been silenced by family loyalty." So I shared it. Not for pity, not to shame anyone, but to show what happens when one person, one parent decides the cycle ends with them. It surprised me how many people came up to me after those talks to whisper their own stories. A father whose mother used to discipline his sisters into silence. A mother who watched her brother be physically punished and told it was love. A grown woman who hadn't sung in years because her dad once said her voice was annoying at dinner. We were everywhere. People whose childhoods had been shaped by shame, silence, and the suffocating pressure to keep the family together at all costs. And slowly we were choosing something else. Not revenge, not estrangement for the sake of it, but honesty. Boundaries. A new definition of what family should mean. One autumn afternoon, we hosted a small get-together in our living room. Mia called it our chosen family celebration. Tara was there, of course. So were Paul and his kids he and Linda had quietly separated. Claire came with her sister, a few of my co-workers, a couple of moms from the choir group, and unexpectedly my grandmother, Grandma Edith. She arrived holding a pie, and to my complete shock, my mother was with her. They had come together. Mom looked nervous, out of place, but she didn't say anything critical. She didn't whisper corrections under her breath. She sat quietly and watched. At one point, Mia tugged on my sleeve. "Can I sing the song now, Mom?" I bent down. "Only if you want to." She nodded firmly. "I've been practicing." I gathered everyone's attention, then stepped aside as Mia stood by the window, sunlight pouring over her. She sang a song about bravery, about using your voice. Her voice was strong and unwavering. She didn't look down. She didn't ask for permission. She owned that moment. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Even my mother wiped a tear from her cheek. She turned to me and whispered, "She really does have a beautiful voice." I looked her in the eye. Yes. And now she knows it. That night, after everyone left and Mia was asleep, I sat on our little balcony wrapped in a blanket, sipping tea, watching the stars. I thought about how far we'd come, from being slapped into silence to standing tall in our truth, from being dismissed to being heard, from fear to freedom. We weren't perfect. We still had hard days. But now we had the tools to navigate them. And more importantly, we had each other. That slap was meant to silence Mia, but instead it ignited a fire, and in protecting her voice, I found mine. As fall deepened and the trees shed their leaves like layers of memory, I found myself reflecting more often. Not just about what had happened that summer, but about why it had happened. About what kind of soil a family needs to grow in for a man like Lucas to believe slapping a child is discipline, and for two parents to laugh along with him. It wasn't just about one bad moment. It was about decades of quiet messages. Don't make waves. Family is everything. Discipline means control. Be grateful it could be worse. Those were the mantras of my childhood. They taught us that appearances mattered more than truth. That speaking up made you the problem. That silence was love. But now, with distance and perspective, I could see how dangerous those lessons were. Dr. Garner once said, "Children raised in homes like yours often grow up believing that love is something you earn by shrinking yourself." And she was right. I had spent so much of my life trying to take up less space to avoid being too much. Too loud, too emotional, too opinionated. And for years, I thought I was doing the right thing, playing it safe. But Mia shattered that illusion in the best possible way. She was everything I wasn't allowed to be: joyful, expressive, unapologetically present. And when Lucas struck her, he wasn't just reacting to noise. He was reacting to freedom. To the audacity of a little girl who refused to be quiet. Who didn't fear taking up space in a world that had always made women, and especially me, feel too large for comfort. That day at the lake house, I had a choice: carry on the legacy, or break it. And thank God I chose to break it. But breaking something, even something toxic, comes with grief. There were days I missed the idea of family. Holidays still carried a quiet ache. Watching Mia open presents from Tara instead of grandparents who once adored her stung more than I liked to admit. And every so often I'd glance at my phone, wondering if my mother would text something real, not performative or self-pitying, but honest. Sometimes I'd get it. Short messages, usually after therapy. "I'm learning." I didn't know how deep it went. Or I watched a video about generational trauma today. It reminded me of you. It wasn't redemption, but it was movement. One afternoon in late October, Mia and I were baking cookies, her new favorite ritual, when she asked, "Mom, will I ever see Grandpa again?" I paused, kneeling to her level. "Do you want to?" She thought for a second. "I don't know. He makes my tummy feel weird, but sometimes I miss the boat rides." I nodded slowly. "That's okay. It's okay to miss the good parts, even if the whole thing wasn't good." She tilted her head. "Will he ever say sorry?" I looked her in the eyes. "He might. Or he might not. But what matters is that you know he was wrong, and that it's not your fault." She smiled. "I know. Aunt Tara says it too. And Ms. Joanna." Then she turned back to her dough, humming again. Freely. That night, after she went to bed, I emailed Dr. Garner a quick update. Mia asked about her grandfather today. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She just asked. And she kept singing afterward. "Thank you for helping us get here." She replied 10 minutes later. "She's building resilience, and so are you." The phrase stuck with me, because that's what this journey was really about, not just surviving pain, but turning it into something stronger, something that wouldn't buckle under pressure the way silence once did. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten, no return address. It was from Claire. Inside was a note, short but powerful. "You started a domino effect, Vanessa. You gave me the courage to leave, to stop excusing, to believe that peace was worth more than prestige. Thank you." Taped to the bottom was a tiny photograph, Claire and her sister standing in front of a new apartment, both smiling. I placed it on the fridge next to Mia's choir recital flyer. Because that's what healing looks like sometimes, tiny, unglamorous victories. Letters in the mail. Kids humming at the table. A friend standing next to you in the kitchen washing dishes while you laugh at nothing. It's not flashy, but it's freedom. And I'll take freedom, quiet, joyful, imperfect freedom over generational loyalty any day. Life had changed, but the weight of the past still lingered. I realized that healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant learning to live with scars, visible or invisible, and deciding what kind of story I wanted to write from here. My relationship with my parents remained complex. They tried reaching out more often, but I was cautious. I told them clearly that any future relationship would require honest acknowledgement of the past and concrete steps to rebuild trust. Therapy continued both for Mia and for me. The sessions helped me untangle years of self-doubt and guilt. They helped me see that protecting Mia meant protecting myself too. I found myself growing stronger, not just as a mother, but as a woman who refused to be silenced anymore. My work at Madison Marketing flourished. The promotion gave me financial independence I hadn't dreamed of. It was empowering to know I wasn't reliant on my parents' sporadic help or approval. More importantly, I found a community. The support group I joined for parents navigating family trauma became a lifeline. Sharing my story opened doors for others to share theirs. We created a circle where silence was replaced by voice, where pain was met with understanding, not judgment. At one of these meetings, the facilitator said something that stayed with me. "Your story resonates because it's about more than one moment. It's about breaking cycles, about choosing your child's well-being over family expectations. That's a brave choice many struggle to make." I knew that bravery wasn't about grand gestures. It was about everyday choices, the courage to speak up, to say no, to stand firm. On a crisp autumn morning, we held a small gathering at our apartment. Mia called it our chosen family celebration. Friends from work, members of the support group, Paul and his kids all came. And to my surprise, Grandma Edith showed up too. Even my mother came tentatively for the first time since everything happened. As everyone mingled, Mia tugged at my sleeve. "Mom, can I sing the song now?" she whispered. I smiled. "Are you sure you want to?" She nodded, determination shining in her eyes. The room quieted as she took her place by the window, sunlight highlighting her face. She sang not the cartoon song that triggered the nightmare, but a gentle ballad about courage and finding your voice. Her clear, sweet voice filled the room, unafraid and unapologetic. When she finished, the applause was warm and genuine. My mother dabbed her eyes quietly. "She has a beautiful voice," she said softly. I squeezed Mia's hand. Yes, she does. And now she knows it. That evening, after everyone left, I sat on our small balcony watching the sunset. I thought about the journey, the losses, the victories, the hard work ahead. For the first time, I faced the future without the shadow of family toxicity. Lucas's slap was meant to silence a child. Instead, it gave voice to a family's suppressed truths. In trying to make Mia small, he showed me how strong I could be. As mothers, we can't always prevent pain, but we can teach our children to respond with courage and dignity. We can stand firm in our truth even when standing alone. And sometimes that's the greatest gift of all. As the months passed, the wounds in our family began to reveal their true shape, not just on the surface, but deep within the roots that had bound us for generations. Patterns of silence, of denial, of misplaced loyalty had been cracked open, exposing truths long buried. My parents tried to regain footing, but the dynamics had shifted irreversibly. The cracks in their armor were visible now, and their attempts at reconciliation often felt more like damage control than genuine remorse. Our family therapist was clear. True healing required accountability, not just apologies. And accountability meant accepting the harm caused, changing behaviors, and respecting boundaries. In these sessions, I witnessed small but meaningful shifts. My father made efforts to engage with Mia on her terms, no longer imposing his expectations or demanding perfection. My mother, though still fragile, began to listen without judgment, curbing her critical remarks and opening space for honest conversation. Mia's visits with them were carefully structured, held in neutral environments to ensure her safety and comfort. Progress was slow, but tangible. Among relatives, the divide that emerged was less about blood and more about values. Those who had once stayed silent or complicit began to speak their truths. Others chose distance. Grandma Edith became an unexpected ally, a voice for change grounded in decades of wisdom. During one of our weekly tea visits, she confided, "I made mistakes with your father. I told myself that's just how men were back then. But by the time I saw the damage, the patterns were already set. What you've done to break the cycle, it's powerful." Her candor helped me understand the generational nature of our family's dysfunction. It didn't excuse the harm, but it explained its persistence. More importantly, it steeled my resolve to ensure these patterns ended with me. Professionally, the confidence I found in standing up for Mia translated to my work. When a project management position opened at Madison Marketing, I applied, even though I doubted I was qualified. To my surprise, I got the job. "Grace," my supervisor told me during the interview, "your handling of the crisis with your daughter showed exceptional leadership, strategic thinking, clear communication, integrity under pressure. Those qualities are exactly what we need." The promotion meant financial independence, allowing Mia and me to live without fear of financial strings attached to family dynamics. Beyond career and therapy, I found a new community, a support group for parents navigating family trauma. Sharing my story there led others to share theirs. We formed a network of understanding, strength, and healing. At one meeting, the facilitator said, "Your story resonates because it's about breaking generational patterns and choosing your child's well-being over family expectations. That's a choice many struggle to make, and your courage inspires." That courage now pulses through everything I do. It's in Mia's laughter, in the music that fills our home, in the firm but gentle boundaries I maintain. We've rebuilt our definition of family not based on obligation or blood alone, but on love, respect, and truth. And for the first time in my life, I'm proud to say I'm walking that path on my own terms, with my head held high and Mia's hand firmly in mine. The past 7 months have been the most challenging yet transformative period of my life. I lost some family connections but gained authentic ones. I faced financial uncertainty but found professional growth. Most importantly, I showed Mia that she was worth protecting no matter the cost. Our journey is far from over. There will be difficult conversations, ongoing therapy sessions, and boundaries to maintain. But each step forward strengthens us both. Mia's resilience amazes me daily. The once shy girl who questioned her worth now sings with confidence and joy. Her voice no longer carries the weight of shame or fear, it carries hope and freedom. Through this journey, I've learned that true family isn't defined by blood alone. It's defined by those who choose to love, respect, and protect you. I stand as a mother who refused to be silenced, and as a woman who reclaimed her voice. Lucas's slap was meant to silence Mia. Instead, it gave voice to generations of suppressed truths. In protecting her, I found strength I never knew I had. To anyone listening who has faced similar pain, know that you're not alone. You deserve to be heard, to take up space, and to use your voice without shame. Healing begins when we choose to break the cycle. And that choice, though difficult, is the most powerful thing we can make. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope our story inspires you to stand firm in your truth and protect those you love. Because sometimes the loudest voice is the one that changes everything. Family doesn't always mean safety, but we can create safety for ourselves and our children by setting boundaries, seeking support, and choosing truth over silence. Protecting your child's voice is protecting their soul. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's standing tall despite it.